The last winter Ethan Mitchell spent in my house was so cold I could see my own breath every morning in the kitchen. Some days I stood at the window and watched the sunrise bleed across the snow, wondering if today would be the day I lost everything, or if maybe I already had. I still made his breakfast, still crushed his meds, still wiped the sleep from his eyes and pretended not to hear Samantha Lee's name when he mumbled in his dreams. My friends said I was a saint for staying. The neighbors said I was strong for surviving. But the truth is, you don't feel strong when you're the only person left awake in a house built on lies. You just feel awake. And that's when you notice every sound, every midnight, phone vibration, every new transaction on a shared account, every second that the world keeps turning while you stand perfectly still. It was the sound of a lie echoing through a home that no longer belonged to me. And it was the cold that finally taught me, if you want to survive a winter like this, you don't wait for the thaw. You become the storm. I remember the exact moment things shifted. It was January, just after 7 a.m., when I sat at the kitchen counter, half asleep, balancing the checkbook and skimming through bank alerts on my phone. The house was silent. Ethan still upstairs, a vegetable by every doctor's word, breathing through his mouth, in a bed we hadn't shared in almost 2 years. I almost deleted the alert without thinking. But something about the amount $800 withdrawn at exactly midnight made me pause. I opened the transaction history. My thumb hovered over the account number. Another withdrawal, then another, all made just after midnight twice a week for months. I ran the numbers twice, then a third time as if the act might change reality. In the next room, the old radiator clanked. A floorboard creaked, probably the dog, but my pulse hammered so loud in my ears I could barely hear anything else. I tried to remember. When was the last time I made a withdrawal that size? When had Ethan's medical expenses required that much cash so regularly? Never. I glanced at the framed wedding photo over the fireplace. Ethan's smile frozen. My own face so bright and naive, I wanted to reach through the glass and shake myself. I got up every step measured and careful and made my way to the den where we kept the home office. The file drawer stuck as always, but I yanked until it groaned open. Receipts, stacks of them. Not a single one for a midnight cash withdrawal. My hands shook as I pulled up the security app on my phone, flipping back through the motion alerts. There, a shadow moving down the stairs just after midnight, grainy in the camera's night vision. Not an intruder, not a burglar. Ethan, walking, unsteady but upright, perfectly conscious. My first thought wasn't even anger. It was awe. How long had he been practicing this lie? My phone buzzed in my hand. Another transaction, another withdrawal, this time for $1,000. I took a slow breath and whispered more to the empty house than to myself. All right, Ethan, let's see how deep this goes. Because if my marriage was built on a lie, I was about to dig until I found the truth, and then burn the whole damn thing to the ground. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at the dining table tracing every bank statement with a highlighter, building a timeline out of dates, times amounts, turning Ethan's secret life into a crime scene. At 2:08 a.m., another camera alert flashed on my phone. I tapped in, expecting the usual Ethan's shuffling footsteps, a shadow slipping down the hall. But this time, there was someone else, a woman. Tall, dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She moved with the confidence of someone who belonged, someone who'd walked through this house 100 times, never once worried about being caught. She let herself in with a key. She didn't look around. She headed straight for the kitchen, dumped something in the trash, then disappeared toward the back stairwell toward the guest room. Ethan's sick room. My heart was a hammer against my ribs. I watched the timestamp 2:09 a.m. I went to the trash and found a receipt from the 24-hour pharmacy down the street dated 10 minutes earlier. Her signature was scribbled across the bottom, Samantha Lee. The name pulsed in my head like a migraine. Samantha. Ethan's high school sweetheart. The woman he lost touch with after college. The one he'd blocked on Facebook after our wedding. I ran my finger along the rim of the trash can, heart pounding, trying to remember if I'd ever left a spare key with anyone besides his parents. I hadn't, and yet she moved through my house like she owned it. The realization burned through the fog of exhaustion. This wasn't just about Ethan lying to me. It was about all the ways he'd built a secret life inside my own home, while I played nursemaid, wife, and grieving partner. I scrolled through old texts looking for gaps, for excuses, for the days when Samantha's name would have fit doctor's appointments that ran late deliveries, that never came old friends who called but never left a voicemail. The next morning, I watched the camera again. At 7:15 a.m., Samantha walked out, calm, barely glancing at the security panel. Ethan waited until she was gone before returning to his bed, Lim's heavy eyes squeezed shut. He'd practiced that limp. He'd gotten good at pretending. My hands were ice, my jaw tight. I made 2 decisions before the coffee even brewed change every lock on the house. Let Ethan keep acting for now. If he wanted to play helpless, I would play along. But the rules had changed, because now I wasn't the only one in the dark, and I was done being the last to know. I spent the next 48 hours acting like nothing had changed. I poured Ethan's pills into his palm each morning, watched him choke them down with water, wipe the corner of his mouth, the way you do for people who can't do it for themselves. He never met my eyes. He kept up the performance, the slow blinks, the limp hand, the vacant stare. But I saw the way his fingers twitched when he thought I wasn't looking. I saw how he forgot to slur his words when Samantha texted. By the 3rd day, I was done playing nurse. I set the trap on a Wednesday night, told Ethan I'd be gone for a pharmacy run, made a show of slamming the front door, and circled back to watch from the security monitor in the garage. 10 minutes passed. 15. Then I saw him, Ethan, upright, stretching his legs in the living room, reaching for the remote with steady hands. He checked his reflection in the window, practiced his sick face, then walked across the room to answer his phone. I turned on the baby monitor hidden behind a stack of books. The audio cut through the silence. "Yeah? She left. You can come now." His voice was clear, strong, no hint of the soft broken tones he saved for me. Another minute and Samantha slipped in through the back. No keys needed, he'd left the door unlocked. She kissed him, full on the mouth. He laughed, and I felt something inside me go very still. I stepped into the kitchen, heels loud on the tile, and waited for them to hear me. Ethan froze in the hallway, Samantha's lipstick still fresh on his cheek. Oh, I said, cold and quiet, looks like the patients made a miraculous recovery. Samantha gasped. Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came out. I smiled small sharp. "Don't stop the act now," I told him, folding my arms. "You've still got an audience." He reached for excuses, stammering, but I held up my phone and played back the audio from the baby monitor. His face drained of color. Samantha stepped back, her bravado gone. I looked Ethan dead in the eye. "How long have you been lying to me?" He tried to protest, blamed stress, depression, anything but himself. I didn't yell, didn't throw a single thing. I just stared at them both until they shrank, exposed and pitiful. "Finish your performance," I said, voice flat. "I want to see how it ends." Then I walked out, leaving them in a house suddenly much too cold for comfort. I didn't move out. I didn't file for divorce. I didn't even change my routines. Instead, I made the house smaller. I started locking the master bedroom, changed the code to the garage, bought a new safe for my files. I replaced the front door key, and every time Samantha tried hers, I got an alert. And then quietly, I set up a new camera, one they'd never find, hidden behind a row of books in the upstairs hall, angled to catch every late-night step, every whispered secret in the dark. The first night, nothing. The second, Samantha tiptoed through at midnight, tossing glances over her shoulder. Ethan followed 5 minutes later, walking better than any physical therapist had seen him in a year. The third night, they met at the top of the stairs. She handed him a small envelope cash. He slipped her a pill bottle in return. I recorded everything. Meanwhile, I played the dutiful wife for Ethan's parents. They called daily asking for updates on his recovery. I sent them videos, just the right ones, showing Ethan slow, frail, barely able to mumble hello. Mr. Mitchell called Ethan a fighter. Mrs. Mitchell wept on FaceTime. They never saw the footage from 2 a.m., Ethan moving like a man with nothing left to hide. By the end of the week, I had a full archive, Samantha's visits, the hidden cash drops, Ethan relapsing when I was in the room, then bounding up the stairs when I left. Even the moment Samantha looked straight at the camera, not realizing it was recording, and smiled. I put everything on a flash drive, labeled it insurance, and dropped it in the new safe. But that wasn't enough. I wanted them to suffer the same uncertainty they'd forced on me, so I began to move their world. I changed Ethan's direct deposit to route half his paycheck to a separate account in my name. I scheduled daily home nurse visits, just in case, knowing he'd have to fake his illness for strangers, not just for me. When Samantha tried to leave one night, she set off the new alarm. Police showed up, took a statement, and filed a trespass report. She never saw it coming. Neither did Ethan. By the end of the month, Ethan's hands shook for real, not from illness, from fear. And as I locked the house each night, I smiled at the silent camera in the hall, because this was my home again. And every step they took was recorded proof that the only thing sick in this house was their trust. I picked the day with intention. A Saturday in April. Warm enough for open windows, quiet enough that the world would hear every scream. By noon, Ethan's parents were on their way, lured by my careful message about progress. Samantha was already scheduled for her usual drop-in, and Ethan, ever the actor, had no idea the curtain was about to fall. I baked a pie that morning, the smell of cinnamon and apples curling through the house, made coffee, set the dining table, made it look for a fleeting moment like a family again. By 2 p.m., everyone was in the living room, Ethan pale and weak in his chair, Samantha by his side, voice syrupy sweet. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell across from me, holding hands like their prayers had finally worked. I pressed play on the TV. The screen flickered, and then footage from the upstairs hallway. Samantha handing Ethan cash, Ethan passing her pills. The two of them walking, laughing whole. Ethan's mother gasped. Mr. Mitchell's face went hard and gray. Samantha stood up so fast she nearly knocked over her chair. That's illegal. You can't record people without... I didn't flinch. It's my house, my hallway, my cameras. Ethan tried to grab the remote. I snatched it back, voice like glass. "Don't you dare," he started babbling excuses, fingers trembling. Mrs. Mitchell stared at her son like he'd grown horns. I kept the video rolling scene after scene. Ethan upright at midnight, Samantha sneaking out with envelopes, their whispered plans, their practiced routine, the proof of months, maybe years of betrayal. Samantha bolted for the door. Mr. Mitchell blocked her path. "Sit," he growled. Ethan buried his face in his hands. "Rachel, please don't say my name," I replied, voice flat. "You lost that right the day you let her walk through my front door." The silence stretched. Mrs. Mitchell began to cry, quiet, broken sobs. Mr. Mitchell's jaw flexed with every breath. Samantha's phone buzzed in her purse. She reached for it. I didn't stop her. She glanced at the screen, and whatever she saw made her face go white. She slumped back in her chair. Ethan stared at me, finally out of lies. I looked him dead in the eye. This is what happens when you think a house built on secrets will ever feel like home. Then I stood up, gathered my things, and walked out into the sun. Let them live with the truth. Let them drown in it. Because today, everything fell apart. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the least bit cold. I didn't rage, didn't beg, didn't bother with one last grand speech. Instead, I got methodical. First, I met with the bank manager, a woman named Claudia, who wore lipstick the exact shade of battle. I brought every statement, every screenshot, every midnight withdrawal. I showed her the trail Ethan's medical expenses that funneled straight into a private account I'd never known existed. She didn't blink. "Do you want to file a report?" "I want every transfer flagged and frozen," I said. "And I want him to get the call, not me." She grinned. "Consider it done." Next, I called my lawyer, explained it all, sent the videos, the financials, the logs of every visitor and phone call for the last year. "Do you want to press charges?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "Let's start with the money. He stole from me. He can watch it slip away $1 at a time." By the end of the week, Ethan's accounts were locked. His cards declined. The rainy day fund he'd siphoned off for Samantha gone transferred back to our joint account per the prenup clause he'd signed years before. I watched him receive the news. He threw his phone across the living room, shattered it against the wall. Samantha screamed at him, her own savings gone too, funneled through an account I'd rerouted to my lawyer's escrow. She packed a bag and left that night, slamming the door so hard it rattled the pictures on the wall. Meanwhile, I moved my things out, slowly, calmly. I left the house the way I found it, clean, cold, uninviting. The only thing I took was my name and my proof. No police, no ambulance, no public drama. Just the sound of the locks changing the silence after their last fight echoing down empty hallways. I never once shouted. I never raised a hand. I simply let the truth do what anger never could. And for the first time in my life, I realized revenge doesn't have to be loud to be permanent. It just has to be patient. It only took 2 months. The lawyers moved quickly, faster than Ethan or Samantha could keep up. With the prenup, the video evidence, and the financial fraud laid out in black and white, Ethan's options evaporated. No contest, no tricks, no stalling. He tried to apologize in court hands, trembling voice too small for the room. I didn't answer. I let my attorney handle every word, every sigh, every detail. By the end of the hearing, the judge awarded me everything. The house, the savings, half the secret account once proven marital property, the cars, the stocks, the condo in Miami, Ethan thought I didn't know about. Ethan was left with nothing but a suitcase, a credit score in ruins, and a restraining order. Samantha tried to call me. Once. She left a message. "You didn't have to ruin us. We loved each other. You could have just left." I deleted it. No response. I didn't celebrate, didn't post cryptic quotes, didn't drink champagne in the bathtub. I just packed my life into 3 boxes, signed the final papers, and handed the keys to a locksmith. The day I moved out, I walked past Ethan on the front lawn. He looked smaller than I remembered. Older. The mask was gone, the performance over. He opened his mouth, but I shook my head. "Don't," I said. "You spent 2 years pretending. Let's not waste another second on lies." He nodded, swallowing the words he'd saved for too long. I drove away, slow, deliberate, free. What they didn't know was that I had left one last gift behind, a copy of the camera footage. A notarized confession Ethan had signed years before, back when he thought he was being clever with taxes, and a note written in my cleanest cursive. "Next time you plan a life together, be honest about the price." By summer's end, Samantha was gone. Dylan, her real husband, found out everything and filed for divorce, his own lawyer calling me for evidence. Ethan tried to fight for her, but he was left with nothing but headlines, hospital debt, and silence. The world never learned my side because I never needed them to. I had my peace. I had my freedom. And I had the knowledge that the best revenge is living a life so calm your enemies have nothing left to steal. I never meant to hear about their wedding, but in a small town, bad news finds you whether you ask for it or not. Samantha and Dylan, her husband the boxer, were supposed to be a power couple, all glitz Instagram followers and fake reconciliations. After my divorce, Samantha went crawling back, spinning tales of forgiveness to anyone who'd listen. She posted a new ring on her feed, Dylan's hand, over hers the caption, "Second chances are real. Love always wins." But behind the hashtag, something rotten was growing. It started with a phone call from Monica, a friend of a friend. "Rachel, you need to see this." She texted me a video, blurry handheld chaos in the background. Samantha, in a white dress, mascara streaked down her face, screaming at Dylan in the middle of a crowded reception hall. "You think I don't know? You think I'm as stupid as your first wife?" Dylan, fists clenched, jaw tight. Guests staring, some filming, some too shocked to move. "You want to talk about stupid? Let's talk about your affair, the one with the man who lost everything for you." Tables crashed, glass shattered. Someone tried to intervene and got shoved. Then, like some sick Greek tragedy, the fight spilled outside. Later that night, police tape ringed the parking lot. No one died that night, but something did. By morning, the wedding was a meme. The second chance love story was trending for all the wrong reasons. I watched the videos only once, not out of pity, just to remind myself what chaos looks like when you invite it in. The fallout was fast and ugly. Dylan filed for divorce the next week, citing infidelity and fraud. Samantha left town, her reputation ruined her name a punchline. The gym banned her. Dylan's sponsors dropped him. Ethan alone tried to message me. Once. Twice. I blocked him both times. Because the only wedding I cared about now was the one nobody survived. Not even the people who tried to write themselves as the main characters. That summer, I let myself breathe again. New city, new job, new nameplate on the door. And for the first time, I realized I hadn't just left a marriage. I'd survived a whole damn war. August, nearly a year since the day everything collapsed. I was sitting on my new apartment's balcony watering a pot of basil that refused to die when a thick envelope landed in my mailbox. The return address was a law firm upstate, a name I recognized only because Ethan's father had mentioned it in passing years ago. I didn't open it right away. Old instincts, maybe. But that night, with a glass of wine in hand, I slit the seal and slid the papers free. Last will and testament of Harold Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell had passed quietly, no fuss, no fanfare. He'd been sick for months, his health worsening, while Ethan played his games and Samantha chased after a new life. Inside the will, beneath a dozen small bequests to distant cousins and old friends, was my name. To Rachel Harper, I leave the sum of $100,000 in gratitude for her years of care and honesty when others would have run. I stared at the words for a long time. In all those years, I'd never thought Mr. Mitchell noticed the details. The pills I counted, the meals I made, the way I shielded their son from pity and gossip, even when he didn't deserve it. But he had. Ethan and Samantha both cut out, their shares redirected to charity, a quiet act of justice written in lawyer's ink. The check arrived 2 weeks later. I deposited it with a mix of guilt and relief. I didn't spend it on revenge or even on new beginnings. I paid off my student loans, donated to a women's shelter, bought a round-trip ticket to anywhere, and put the rest in savings. Not for a rainy day, for a sunny one. Ethan tried to contest the will, of course, filed papers, threatened. He lost every motion, every appeal. The last email I ever got from him simply read, "You don't deserve it." He was right. I didn't deserve what he did to me, but I'd earned every penny of my freedom. I sent Mr. Mitchell's lawyer a single thank you card. No return address, just a few words. Some debts aren't meant to be repaid, but I promise I'll pay it forward. And with that, the last tie to that old life was cut clean, quiet, final. The sky was clear that last morning. Blue and easy, nothing left to threaten rain. I stood on the edge of the lake outside my new apartment, a shoebox tucked under my arm inside a collection of things I'd carried for too long. Ethan's wedding band, the spare house key. Samantha thought I never found the receipt from the bank on the day I first uncovered the truth. Old photos, old letters, a flash drive labeled insurance I didn't need anymore. I sat on the pier, took out each piece, turned them in my hands. No tears, no anger, just a strange, clean quiet. For a moment I thought about sending the box to Ethan, or maybe to Samantha wherever she'd run off to. But that would have meant I still wanted them to know I cared. I didn't. I took out a lighter, struck a flame, and set the corner of the oldest letter burning. The fire caught slow and hungry, curling through the box. I watched until it was nothing but ashes, then tipped them into the water and watched the ripples erase everything. Behind me, summer was starting. There were voices on the trail dogs barking a kid, laughing on a bike. I tossed the empty box into the recycling and walked back up the path, my hands empty for the first time in years. By noon, I'd started a new job, met a new neighbor, bought myself fresh flowers for no reason at all. No more ghosts, no more cold winters, no more waiting for someone else's truth to set me free. Just sunlight, just breath, just me. And as I locked my own front door that night, keys jangling, I realized the greatest gift I could ever give myself wasn't justice. It was the permission to walk away and never look back.